The culturally responsive and relationship-based pedagogy is an approach to education that places a high value on the student's cultural background knowledge. This value builds a new standard of learning as it breaks down colonial barriers that may have been holding students back from academic success. For students in the minority, following this culturally responsive pedagogy affirms their identities. In addition, this allows for strong relationships with students as it shows your deep care and respect for what they have to offer in a classroom setting and shows students you can learn alongside them. With this pedagogy comes a practice that I strongly believe should be continued post-graduation. PDP, or Professional Development Process, is a critical step within the educational field to collect evidence of practice that is completed with a follow-up. This process is extremely important as it provides opportunities for both the student, teacher, and observer to learn and reflect alongside each other. This professional development is framed to create a critical learning conversation to build conscientization, resistance, and potential for a transformative praxis. PDP includes pre- and post-conferences to address and work out any troubles that may arise before the lesson, to reflect on the positive within your lesson, and areas to work on for next time. In addition to pre- and post-conferencing, the observers will act as a metaphorical video camera to capture the first 20 minutes of the student-teacher's lesson. This analysis will fall into 3 different categories of WIG, whole class, individual and group, traditional, and discursive. These categories show the pre-service teacher how they are teaching and responding to the class. They will record this evidence for the student-teacher to make reflections on how they can grow as a culturally responsive and relationship-based educator. The ETP, or Effective Teaching Profile, was adapted in 2003 by Russell Bishop and Mia Berryman to reject deficit theorizing about Maori students' achievements in New Zealand. However, in a Canadian context, this practice can be applied for all Indigenous students in the exact same way. The ETP provides possible solutions to improve teaching practices to create more engagement within learning in the classroom. Indigenous students feel comfortable to be themselves, care and learn from each other, and be an active participant in discussions that promote fundamental learning. This section of the culturally responsive and relationship-based pedagogy focuses on how the learner is impacted by the way I, as the educator, interact with students individually and as a group. More specifically, am I affirming my culture and the culture of my students? When an educator is following this specific section, it is important that they can incorporate 4 things: teacher characteristics, teacher actions, culturally responsive teaching, and culturally appropriate teaching. Some goals in each subsection include displaying genuine enthusiasm when engaging with Indigenous students, seeking opportunities to develop meaningful relationships, seeking and incorporating Indigenous students' ideas into learning contexts, and ensuring students can see their lives reflected in learning contexts. These are goals that are crucial to follow, as by asserting these into your teaching, you can build relationships with your students and build their comfortability to express themselves culturally in the classroom. These 4 sections of belief in, respect, and care assist in narrowing the achievement gap by being responsive to Indigenous learners and their culture. It shows that both you as the educator and the student can grow together academically while building a relationship that ensures trust, a genuine display of interest in the student's life and well-being, and transforming their learning to allow their insight and cultural knowledge. High expectations come in the form of articulating and reinforcing behavior and academic expectations for students. This can be seen by ensuring Indigenous students are engaged throughout the entire lesson, sharing learning intentions and success criteria, and fostering respectful and positive relationships in all interactions with Indigenous students. This is a significant part of the culturally responsive and relationship-based pedagogy, as ensuring students comprehend your high expectations can break and dismantle stereotypes that society has set in place for Indigenous students and push their urge to learn and succeed academically. High expectations, coupled with a culturally responsive and relationship-based pedagogy, foster strong connections in a student-to-teacher relationship, as well as building pride in who they are and what they've accomplished. High expectations are viewed through academic and behavioral. Academic comes in the form of ensuring Indigenous students are engaged with learning throughout the entire lesson, and for educators, continuously reflecting on our own teaching and how it impacts student achievement. Students want to know how to best impress you, so providing them with clear and well-set expectations, they will know how to achieve success. Behavioral expectations look like co-constructing expectations for work and behavior and fostering respectful and positive relationships in all their interactions with Indigenous students. Setting behavioral expectations also allows for comfortability in the classroom, as students can have a say in what they expect from you and their peers. High expectations in the classroom assist Indigenous learners by setting an expectation for challenge thinking while working to meet their needs. This means providing the student with opportunities to push their abilities and experiences to be seen through an academic environment. As for behavior, the high expectations within the ETP works to dismantle the colonial disproportionate discipline, such as expulsions and suspensions, that push Indigenous students out of schools. Well-managed and focused learning context is reliant on the educator and how they plan to cater specific needs and grade appropriate content to their students. This section looks to create a successful and well-rounded lesson and learning environment that makes learning a possibility for each student. There are 2 parts to this section: planning and executing the lesson. The first part of planning the lesson looks like ensuring all academic needs of each student are met, limiting distractions during transitions, or having all materials prepared for the lesson. This is important as the educator must take into account all student considerations to make their lesson effective and useful to ensure every student feel that they can succeed. The second part of executing the lesson may look like maintaining an appropriate pace in learning activities, co-constructing classroom and relationship protocols with students, and demonstrating an appreciation of the classroom as a shared working space. It is important to reflect on what may need to be changed or kept the same to meet the needs of Indigenous students for next time. When looking to narrow the achievement gap, this section of the ETP seeks to maximize learning time, reduce academic pressure, and ensures engagement to produce high-quality student work. This provides Indigenous students with an inclusive learning experience that they may have not had. In addition, as an educator, this builds self-efficacy to create a thriving classroom environment where students enjoy coming to school and learning. Effective teaching strategies looks to ensure that effective strategies create engagement and academic success. This section is reliant on the educator as well, as they plan to seek their students' needs, ensure that their lesson runs smoothly, and working to build success. This may look like checking that students understand the learning intentions, co-constructing timeframes for activities, and ensuring planning allows for specific opportunities such as culturally responsiveness or dialogue between students. Ensuring that students understand these intentions and participate in dialogue creates effective and well-rounded learning. Effective teaching strategies to promote learning may strengthen Indigenous students' engagement and willingness to learn or be part of the classroom environment. Using a strategy such as dialogue gives all students, especially Indigenous students, the chance to be heard, gives them responsibility and control in their education, and increases motivation, all of which will lead to narrowing the gap. Strategies to promote accelerated growth work to incorporate different individual needs to assist in academic growth through a variety of tasks and concepts. This is beneficial to students as it addresses their needs to show growth through challenging their thinking, rewarding their successes, and recognizing students' efforts. Within a classroom or during a lesson, strategies to promote accelerated growth may look like responding in a timely manner to individual students, challenging students' thinking to assist in clarifying their thinking, or preparing additional prompts to provide within a lesson. Using strategies to promote accelerated growth is critical in narrowing the academic gap, as it shows Indigenous students that you are attentive to address their needs and want to see them and their thoughts reflected within the classroom. Challenging their learning or questions allows Indigenous students to think more detailed and will accelerate their academic growth. This section of the ETP indicates just how you as an educator are constantly reflecting and evolving your teaching practice. The areas one can work to adjust and reflect upon may include plans or lessons, data, assessments, and setting goals. These 4 areas provide educators with strategies or an area to focus on. Lessons include identifying a weak or disengaged student or adjusting plans based on students' academic needs. Data is changing your lessons based on observations from field supervisors or in action plans. Assessment includes creating assessments that are accessible and accurate for all students. Lastly, goals must be set to better yourself, your teaching practice, and your relationship within the school. During my time in the field, this section of the culturally responsive and relationship-based pedagogy allowed me to build relationships with all the students in Mrs. Zirko's class. Making these connections with the students, especially Indigenous students, made me realize how good it feels to be recognized by an educator in both the personal and academic context. In addition to this, I also made a goal to try to get to know the students in one way or another. Going into the field, I knew this may have not been something I was able to complete or even thought about doing, but throughout the course of 9 weeks, I was able to learn at least one thing about each student in the class. Within my own teaching practice, I use co-construction with students to set high expectations for behavior and academic purposes. With every lesson that I had taught, I used co-construction to set expectations of what we as a class should be doing during a work period or listening to instructions. This was a great technique to use within a classroom, as it was able to show me what the students know, what they can learn from me, and things they might not know or had forgotten. Co-constructing these high expectations also set the standard for what students expect from me when I'm working with them or teaching a lesson. When in the field, well-managed and focused learning context was most often used in lesson plans to assist academic success with my focused students. For example, focused student A had some difficulty with transitioning between classes, especially when having to move between classrooms. Over the course of the last 4 weeks in the field, I worked with them to ensure that they could progressively work towards making transitions less distracting for them and other students. I plan to allow them to set expectations of what they could do to show younger students what it's like to walk in the hallway, co-construct expectations of what it looks like when we switch subjects, and why this is important. Within my time in the field, I feel as if this was one of the sections I lacked in or did not collect enough evidence to be able to show what I'd brought forth. I feel as if there was more I could have done to promote learning in ways that inspired students or were directed to their interests. However, there were several moments where I encouraged work by asking their opinion or of stories that may connect to their life or prior knowledge. I found that those who felt comfortable to share their stories showed a deeper interest in their work and contributed more detail. Within my teaching practice, I use strategies to promote accelerated growth by incorporating feed-forward academic questions to challenge or broaden a student's thinking. I did this because I wanted to add to a student's learning experience with more than my instruction, tasks, and assignments that I provide. From my first to second lesson, I tried to use more feed-forward questions when responding to students, as I was hoping to push their thinking about advocacy and goals of organizations in Saskatchewan. Some evidence that urged more usage of this within a classroom was personal conversations with my cooperating teacher Tara Lazurko, feedback from lesson plans, and witnessing the various needs within the classroom. For example, my decision to play a game within my second lesson came from the grade 5-6s consistently asking to work outside or go outside early for recess. Although I didn't take the students outside, I chose to change their routine by giving them the opportunity to work in groups and get competitive. This increased their engagement and they became excited to participate. Focus student number 3 was a student who I'd seen the most growth from working with them for 9 weeks. They are quiet in a whole group setting but love to express themselves through art and writing. When working with them over 9 weeks, I saw major growth in the depth and descriptiveness of their writing. This started by asking the student their opinion of the question or if they had a story to connect to it. I noticed how important building a deeper understanding of personal connections are, as the student had gone from writing minimal paragraphs to writing detailed paragraphs and drawing a picture to express how they felt about the topic or question. It was an incredible change to see, and I noticed that it built a relationship of trust in doing so. I feel very proud of the student, and I hope they continue this hard work. I felt that I was unable to see any growth with Focus Student A, as many of my action plans I had created for them were repetitive and did not show any growth from a week-to-week basis. This student is very energetic and often gets distracted during transition periods. I felt that I had contributed very little to their academic success, as every week I was making the same goals for them in my action plans. Some days were better than others, but often the student continued to struggle with transitions. If I were to have more time in the classroom, or if this was my own classroom, I would set high expectations for all students to transition appropriately and to not distract other students. Having these high expectations as a whole group may remind this student of what to do, as they will notice their peers doing the same, or peers giving small reminders of what to do. In the classroom, I believe my strengths in planning may be understanding various student considerations and what specific students need during downtimes or when I provide instruction. For example, I was cautious when creating lesson plans because I wanted to ensure that the lesson ran smoothly for the students and me. My strengths in teaching may be seen through building relationships and having good classroom management. I feel that I was very respectable when in the classroom during lessons and dismissed behaviors in an appropriate way with students I did not have a relationship with. My goals for pre-internship are to get better at backwards by design to ensure that the students are learning the skill provided in the curriculum and to incorporate more of the sphere of Indigenous integration. I strongly feel that if I work on creating more inclusive and engaging lessons, I will feel more confident in the classroom. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation.